the Airports Commission report, the AVS Solutions report, the current owner's intention, the CPO point, the CPO point that you deal with twice there, and the progress on the DCO, and the lack of evidence point. I think it's fair to say that all those points are already encapsulated, aren't they, in your paragraph 6.9 that we've already discussed. I don't think there's anything there that's new.
I think the only possible exception is E and F, which isn't covered in masses of detail in the previous section.
It might not be covered in masses of detail, Mr. Alston, but the point is that the CPO issue is already covered, isn't it, in 6.2. In 6, you refer to that in the last sentence. If we go back to paragraph 6.9, in the last sentence of Roman 6, subparagraph E, don't you? So we've already touched on all, or already discussed all those matters, haven't we? The point I'm saying is that you're not raising any new point. It's no criticism of you, it's just so I don't have to ask you any more questions about it. But you don't raise any more new points, do you, in 6.2?
No, I agree.
In fairness to you, you do raise new points in the paragraphs at the bottom of the page, which I think is incorrectly numbered. It doesn't matter, where you have another Roman 1 through to Roman 4, but we'll come back to that. But those, I think it's fair to say that those are the new points that you raise above and beyond the points that you've already referred to in 6.9. Yeah, thank you. Before we come on to that, what I'd like to ask you about is SP05, or Emerging Policy SP05, and you refer to that at page 27 of your evidence, in paragraph 6.20, and you suggest there that I think limited weight should be attached to policy SP05, although you say some weight in the penultimate sentence. So are you suggesting that this inspector, in determining these appeals, should apply some weight to policy SP05?
Some, albeit limited.
Well, let's just look at the situation insofar as policy SP05 is concerned. And we get the guidance for that, don't we, in the NPPF paragraph 216. If we can just turn that up, please. And paragraph 216 sets out the guidance in terms of assessing the weight, if any, that one applies to emerging policy, doesn't it?
Yes.
And policy SP05 in its January 2015 version essentially was supportive of the promotion of the airport through an area action plan in terms of its continuation and expansion, wasn't it?
Yes, that's right.
And that emerging policy was consistent, wasn't it, with extant policy EC4?
Yeah, it was effectively an update.
And insofar as the Council is concerned, we now have a new policy SP05. We can take up the report to committee if we need to, but hopefully we won't. That the only reason that the Council has changed its position on SP05 is because of the receipt of the AVS Solutions report, isn't it?
I'm aware that had a significant bearing over their decision to change the direction of the new local plan. However, they were making a balanced judgment in terms of planning to meet the future needs of the district in respect to all land uses. Notably, one would be housing, where there was an identified need to identify significant greater amounts of deliverable housing land in the district than was earlier anticipated when the 2015 draft was published for consultation. If I get my numbers correct, my understanding is the objective assessed housing need increased from about 12,000 to about 16,000 units over the forthcoming plan period. So in preparing the new SPO5, they had regard to all of the needs of the district on the basis of the evidence available at that point in time. It was the AVIA report.
Of course, they have to take cognizance of their strategic housing market assessment and any update to that. But Mr. Alston, insofar as the airport is concerned and policy SP05, the justification for changing that to a residential scheme is based on the AVIA Solutions report and the conclusions that there is no reasonable prospect that it can return to an airport use. Because in the absence of that, the earlier policy was effectively to protect the airport, wasn't it?
The final decision on the basis of the minutes of the relevant council meetings relies heavily on the AVIA report. However, that was in the context of existing evidence that had previously been submitted to local authority as part of Stonehill Park's representation to the 2015 draft, which demonstrated the suitability and deliverability of the site for residential-led mixed-use development. So therefore they made their decision to change the direction of the local plan on the basis of evidence that suggests that the continuation of an aviation use was unlikely to be deliverable, in parallel with evidence that suggests that a residential-led mixed-use development was something that the site was suitable for and which would be deliverable.
I think we're nearly there. Essentially, the change in the allocation from protecting the site as an airport to residential use followed on from the AVIA Solutions report. It was the AVIA Solutions report, and then the result of that was the change. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, that was a sequence of events.
And therefore, just to come back to the original question that I put, is the reason for the change was the AVIA Solutions report. That's the foundation of why that change took place.
I stand by my previous response in that it was part of, an important part, but as part of a wider evidence base which informed the council's decision.
Forgive me, are you suggesting that in the absence of the AVIA Solutions report that the council would nonetheless have allocated the land for residential development? I mean, that wouldn't have happened, would it?
I don't know.
Right. Well, if you don't know, I obviously can't ask you any more questions about it. There it is. So insofar as emerging SP05 now is, which allocates the airport for mixed-use development, that is a brand new policy, isn't it?
Yes.
It has no basis in an existing extant development plan, does it?
No.
And it's at the earliest stage of its development, isn't it?
Yes.
And the first consultation upon it has not yet finished. I think the final date is Friday.
That's correct.
And it is the subject of significant unresolved objections, isn't it?
I haven't seen any representations that have been made to the draft plan because it's currently out for consultation.
So it's not even got to that that stage yet. But can you and I agree that in the light of the certainly evidence to this inquiry and in the light of the resolution, or sorry, I beg your pardon, the officer's report from Dover District Council, that the likelihood is that the plan will be the subject of significant unresolved objections. That's reasonable, isn't it?
I'd say that's a fair assumption to take.
And insofar as the officer's report to committee from relating to Dover District Council, you've seen that. Could you just maybe just quickly take that out, please, Mr. Alston? Document 9. Perhaps somebody on your side could be kindly provide it to you. No.